Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew DSME once again. Welcome back to another ranking video. The reason why I'm using quotations is because I hardly ever do ranking videos. Sorry, I'm just taking my tea before I go to bed, but I wanted to film this as soon as I possibly could, especially since Toy Story 5 is just around the corner, and I wanted to do another ranking on all the Pixar movies, because I did make one in 2015, but that was when Inside Out came out. I'm not sure if I did it before or after The Good Dinosaur. I know I definitely made it when Inside Out came out, so yeah. And the thing is, I don't really do ranking videos all that much. I feel like they take a lot of time, and you know, you're never going to see me make a Marvel movies rank list or a Star Wars rank list, because I know a lot of people will be pissed off at some of my choices. And I feel like if I was to make a ranking of all the Marvel films, I would have to include like the shows that are technically canon to the... But you see, ranking videos aren't really my thing. But I made a few exceptions. I did rank all the From Software games before Elden Ring. It was before Elden Ring. Yeah, before Elden Ring, and I also did ranking of all the Studio Ghiblis before Boy and the Heron came out. So, because not only is Toy Story 5 coming out, but it's also Pixar's 40th anniversary this year, as they first came to life in 1986 when releasing their very first short, and of course, became much more known for their full-length feature films ever since 1995 all the way up to 2026, as they have released 30 films that are currently out right now, 31 if you count Toy Story 5. Of course, let's talk about all the Pixar movies. I'm going to be ranking these on my personal opinion, because you know, some people aren't going to agree with some of these choices, and some of the bottom choices are very cliche, while some of the top choices are, you know, also cliche choices. But this is just how I personally feel when it comes to all the Pixar films. Like, some of these films, another thing I should probably make out, I don't hate, okay, well, like 99% of these movies I don't hate. There are a few that I think are okay or just good, some great, some absolutely amazing. There's only one that I truly do not like, and you can probably guess what that one is as we get to the very first pick on here, which is the 30th pick. But anyways, without further ado, in honor of Pixar's 40th anniversary, and with Toy Story 5 coming out, it's time for me to rank all 30 of the Pixar movies that are currently available to watch right now, leading up to Toy Story 5. So without further ado, let's begin with quite possibly the most cliche but very obvious choice for number 30. There has been another Pixar movie that I just feel like, why did they even bother making that? Of course, I'm talking about Cars 2. People often like to complain how there should have only been 3 Toy Story movies, though for some reason I hear nobody complain about how there should have only been 1 Cars movie, because the first Cars movie isn't amazing, but compared to the other 2 movies, yeah, there should have only been 1. Cars 2, while I definitely do respect it for trying something different, it does it in such a lazy way that ultimately it just feels completely ridiculous and just completely out of place. Making Mater the main lead just sounds like the most ridiculous option. I mean, instead of calling it Cars 2, you might as well just call it Mater, because I feel like that's initially what they wanted to call it, but they just wanted to call it Cars 2. And don't get me wrong, there are some good qualities to the film, like the animation. It's dazzling. The music, too, it is absolutely phenomenal. The end credit songs are absolutely fantastic, and that's a shame, too, because they're wasted on a film that just has no reason to exist. The story's all over the place, and ultimately, it just doesn't feel like a Pixar film. It just ultimately does not feel like a Pixar movie whatsoever, but just an excuse because the first movie was such a big hit, and while people wait for a sequel that they actually wanted, Incredibles, they decided, hey, let's make Cars 2 and 3. Cars 2, it was just a lazy, poor excuse, new characters, they're obnoxious, and not really all that memorable. I mean, Finn McMissile is okay, but there is often a reason why the third movie just completely forgot this movie existed. And yeah, it's by far the Pixar movie, the only one that I truly do not like. If I were to erase one Pixar movie, it would be this one, and just call the third movie Cars 2. So yeah, and speaking of which, at my number 29 spot is Cars 3. Definitely a step up from the second movie, but ultimately for me, Cars 3 is another film that doesn't really need to exist. I mean, it's nice to know that they decided to just completely forget about what happened in the second movie and just continue on with Lightning McQueen's journey, as he is somewhat about to retire, but ultimately he trains another racer to, fill in for him as I don't know. I honestly haven't seen the movie since I first saw it in the theater, because after watching it, I didn't really feel like watching it again. Because ultimately, I feel like this was an excuse to just make the Cars franchise a trilogy, and ultimately it just goes to show why some films just should have been, just standalone films. Because Cars, the first Cars movie, while, yeah, it was popular when it came to, releasing merchandise, I, for one, had every single piece of merchandise when Cars came out, but ultimately, I just feel like, it should have just been a one and done. Cars 3, while it does have a good message behind it, it often feels predictable and cliched from time to time, but hey, I do respect it for going back to what made the first Cars movie memorable. So, yeah. It's just a shame that most of this movie isn't so much memorable as it is just fine. A fine film for kids, but not really much else going for it. Coming in at number 28 is another obvious choice for a bottom pick, The Good Dinosaur. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I don't think this is a bad movie. I just don't think it's a very memorable one. Because even after seeing it in the theater when it came out, I didn't really feel like this was one of Pixar's, all-time greatest films, especially since this movie came out the same year as another Pixar film, which we're going to see much later on, that was far superior. I guess because how good that film was, our hopes kind of got a little too high when this film came out, as it just became, animation, gorgeous. Characters, they're fine and all. I mean, it has a good message about, fitting in and showing that you do have a purpose when it comes to family, but ultimately it just feels like, it could have been a unique concept on what would happen if the meteor did not kill all the dinosaurs and dinosaurs lived with humans, but oftentimes I feel like there just wasn't enough going for it to, truly make it a Pixar classic, but just, a fine, passable film that you can put on for your kids, and again, it's nothing harmful or anything like that, it's just a fine watch, but man, what a step down from another Pixar movie that came out the same year. And unfortunately, this was the very first Pixar film to fail financially. And unfortunately, there would be a lot more flops from Pixar much later on, unfortunately. But we'll get into that later. Good Dinosaur is good enough, but nothing to write home about. Coming in at number 27 is a very controversial film from Pixar. And I definitely understand where the criticisms come from, and I think they're 100% valid, but I still didn't think it was too bad. Lightyear. Now, I do not count this as part of the Toy Story canon because it's not a Toy Story movie. It's focused on one specific character from Toy Story while bringing in their own spin on it. And while I think it's nice giving Buzz Lightyear his own film with another version of Buzz Lightyear, this Buzz Lightyear isn't nearly as memorable. I mean, in my opinion, I thought Chris Evans was fine, but a lot of the other characters, besides Socks, I absolutely loved Socks, wasn't really all that memorable. I mean, there was a lot of missed potential of adding in, alien characters, just like if you saw that straight-to-video Buzz Lightyear film of Star Command, with Patrick Warburton or whatever. That was a lot of fun, and I felt like there could have been a lot of potential to make that into a theatrical release film with its own spin on it, but ultimately making it, just a fine watch. It's fun enough, but ultimately there are a lot of things that hurt it. Like when it comes to the twist villain and all, it's just a film that, it's a nice, nod to, one of the all-time greatest Pixar characters, but it doesn't hide the fact that, it's still not a movie that really needed to exist. And it's honestly really hard for people to believe that this is supposed to be Andy's favorite movie. Andy from Toy Story, but, yeah, it is what it is, but it's nothing special. Coming in at number 26, I have a film that gets a lot of hate, but I still think it's pretty solid enough, though I wanted to love it, Elemental. Elemental, I felt like could have worked really well had it been a Pixar short instead of a full-length feature film, because from the looks of it, it does feel like it could have gone in that route, except in a full-length feature film, because, look, there's a lot to enjoy about Elemental, believe it or not, besides its gorgeous animation and creative style. Like, when it comes to, like, molding glass into, like, sculptures and whatnot, that was one of the coolest aspects. But how about the actual story? It's fine. Like, the message about, choosing what you want to do in your life rather than what your family tells you what you should do, that's a good meaning, but I feel like it ultimately becomes a mess when it comes to, should these two be together, because ultimately it kind of feels a bit predictable of where the story will lead from that aspect. But it's not enough where I just completely hated the film. I mean, it doesn't have anything bad that it teaches people, so ultimately, I do feel like it does get criticized a little too much, but I just feel like it's one of those films where, yeah, there are good things about it, but there's just something in here that could have made it a hell of a lot better. But again, I thought it was a fine film. Coming in at number 25, we finally get to the very first, and in my opinion, very best of the three films that I just talked about, but I'm ending it off with Cars. This was the Pixar film that I watched the most as a kid. I saw it 3 times in the theater. I had all the merchandise. I was just absolutely hooked on this movie, and it was a film that I just could not stop watching. I don't know what it was about this film, but it was clearly made to sell merchandise, but that doesn't mean, because there was a lot of hate towards this movie, mainly because it didn't live up to a lot of the Pixar quality that came out before. Like, it didn't live up to films like, of course, the first 2 Toy Story movies, or Monsters, Inc., or Finding Nemo, or The Incredibles. It was just a film that, again, had a good message about not being selfish and doing things for others while you still try to reach your goal. Because that's really one of the biggest strengths of the movie, is how Lightning McQueen goes from, being a selfish person just trying to, or car, just to, get out of having to, just going to, do the race so he can win, while also doing things for others. That's a very good, meeting that manages to, keep the film going, as well as supporting characters like Doc Hudson. He is by far one of the most interesting aspects of the entire movie, and it's a shame that, his voice actor passed away, because, hey, he could have made the other 2 movies a lot more special as well if he were a part of it. But yeah, there are a lot of strengths of this movie, and regardless, I'm never going to hate this movie. I'm always going to have a soft spot for this film, and it's still the Cars movie that I would recommend going back to. So yeah, Cars, it's not a bad movie at all. In fact, throughout the years, it has grown much more of a following, so yeah, it's nice to know that it still has its fans, and I still am somewhat one of them. Alright, coming up at number 24 is an often very divisive film, but, it's no surprise, a lot of these films are quite divisive, but one of the most divisive is Brave. Yes, I didn't forget about the physical media, I do have these on physical media, but it's weird, because just like with Cars, I did watch this a lot, but looking at it today, it definitely doesn't feel much like a Pixar film, as it much rather feels like a film that just Disney would make. Which is funny, because the Disney film that came out the same year, Wreck-It Ralph, felt a lot more like a Pixar film. But that's not to say that the movie's bad. I mean, yes, the trailers made it look like it was going to be something epic, and ultimately it was a film about her mother turning into a bear and having to, get her changed back into a human. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, but that doesn't mean it doesn't fully work. There are some good lessons in here, and I really like the way that, Merida and her mother communicate when it comes to her being a bear. And while sure, there are some good elements to the story, and the animation and character designs are absolutely phenomenal, I do ultimately feel that compared to many other Pixar films, it's not bad. In fact, I still really enjoy this film, but I can understand why it doesn't get nearly as much love as many other Pixar films. But hey, compared to what Pixar did previously, Cars 2, I'm sorry that I keep bringing up that film, but yeah, ultimately this was a step up from that. So yeah, Pixar did do one thing right, but be honest, did this really need to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature over all these other nominations? Paranorman, Frankenweenie, Wreck-It Ralph. I don't know. Many people agreed that this was the weakest nomination out of all of them, but hey, regardless, what can you do? They made their choice. It's not the best choice, but hey, it's certainly not a bad watch. Coming in at number 23 is Pixar's only prequel, Monsters University. While this definitely isn't as good as Monsters, Inc., a lot of people, one of the biggest things about this movie is how much of a plot hole the entire film is. If you watch the beginning of the first one where Mike and Sully are walking on the way to work, yeah, you can tell why. But, there have been some theories around that, but it never really ruined my overall enjoyment for the film, because I still do enjoy the film. It still has a good meaning behind it, and I do like the fact that, it's not a film that's always, happy, Mike and Sully are going to succeed, because it's actually the complete opposite. And it goes to show why exactly we love the original Monsters, Inc. Well, sure, some of the new characters aren't nearly as memorable as some of the previous ones, and the animation, while it still looks pretty good, is definitely a lot more cartoony, especially since, other Pixar movies would copy this style much later on, and it doesn't really fit entirely, but ultimately, Monsters University, it's still not a bad film. I think it's one of the better prequels to watch. I've always enjoyed this one, and while I don't see myself rewatching it nearly as much as the first Monsters, Inc., I definitely do respect it for being a prequel that does respect its audience for the most part. And hey, it's not a top-tier quality Pixar film, but it's still a very solid one nonetheless. Coming in at number 22 is one of last year's biggest box office bombs, Elio. And in my opinion, it did not deserve the at the box office, because while this isn't one of Pixar's all-time best, hence why it's only number 22 on the list, I feel like there's a lot to like about this movie. Though there were a lot of production issues, mostly because of, what Pixar was allowed to show in the film, like in terms of LGBTQ elements, which isn't present in this movie, but ultimately what makes the movie work is the message about, finding out where exactly you belong. And honestly, I love the chemistry between, Elio and his aunt, as well as the relationship and bond that he has with this alien. God, I forgot what his name was. Glorden, I think that's what it was called, but it was very wholesome, and ultimately, it's what kept the film going for me. I don't really feel like it needed to be one of Pixar's all-time greatest box office bombs ever, because there's still a lot to enjoy about the movie. It's definitely not perfect, it has its faults, but I still think it's a very underrated film. Another pretty underrated film of theirs is 2021's Luca, one of the many Pixar films that had to go straight to Disney Plus because the pandemic and all, but Luca was definitely a delightful treat. It doesn't really do anything new when it comes to the genre of, these creatures, they're not allowed in our world, they're disgusting and all that, but again, just like with many of other Pixar's films, they do have a good meaning behind it. And just like the previous film, there was definitely a great source to this film about friendship that definitely kept the film going for me. And the scope and the world that this film takes place in is absolutely stellar. The animation style and the characters are very likable. It does have a very lame villain in my opinion, but ultimately there's still a lot about this movie that I feel like manages to really pay off and truly shows that, Pixar can still do a lot of good, even if some of the quality, from some of its storylines aren't always top tier like they used to be. Luca is still a very solid film nonetheless. Next up at the number 20 spot is Onward. Had this movie not come out during the time where the lockdown started to commence, I feel like it could have made a hell of a lot more money. How could you not go out and see an animated film with Tom Holland and Chris Pratt as the main leads? And they work excellently together in this movie. This movie often got kind of forgotten after it came out, especially since another Pixar film that came out the same year got a lot more attention. Onward is still a very delightful film about brothership and, loss, and, there's just a lot to this movie that definitely manages to work. The humor, for the most part, is very spot on, and I really like the fact that, it takes a unique concept of how, in this fantasy world, technology is taking over, and there's only a little bit of magic left that they do tend to use, and it's done in a very, very unique way. And the ending, Pixar is definitely good at ending their films, and they did it in a very strong way here. And ultimately, I feel like that's what made the movie for me. So, it doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but it's still, nonetheless, a very solid film. Coming in at number 19 is the most recent Pixar film, not counting Toy Story 5, because as I'm filming this, that's not even out yet. Hoppers, of course. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is this film was actually directed by the man behind We Bare Bears, which is a show that I absolutely love. You know, that Cartoon Network show about the bears. That show was great. So seeing him work on a Pixar film, yeah, I could see why the man behind We Bare Bears made this. Because it has a great message about, keeping our environment safe, and it definitely is a tribute to people who not only love beavers and monarch butterflies, despite the fact that, the main character kills a butterfly accidentally. Spoiler alert. This is still a very deep film that has a lot of humor, but still a lot of heart and emotion behind it that I was not expecting. It still manages to have dark themes behind it, and it definitely shows that Pixar can make a film both humorous and emotional at the same time, and that's truly what I love the most about this film. It's fun, it never feels slow, it never feels like it's doing anything to feel completely cliched. I mean, there are some cliches here and there, but ultimately, it's a film that I feel like anybody at any age can enjoy. And I don't know, it might grow a little bit more for me over time, but still, number 19 isn't too bad. Above the 20s, and yeah, I had a lot of fun with this film. So, yeah, Hoppers. Definitely a very solid one. Coming in at number 18 is A Bug's Life. Now, A Bug's Life has a very interesting history behind it. I mean, this was a film to compete with, DreamWorks' animated film Ants. In my opinion, I've always enjoyed A Bug's Life more because Ants, I watched a little bit as a kid, but never got fully into it. I don't know why, but I don't know. I've always preferred A Bug's Life. Maybe it's because I'm more of a Pixar guy than a DreamWorks guy. I don't know. But A Bug's Life is a very unique film. While it did receive a lot of praise when it came out, it didn't get nearly as much love as Toy Story did, because with how much that film, grew into popularity, A Bug's Life, there were some things about it that definitely didn't work, but what really made it work was the characters and the storyline, and oftentimes it really made for a very empowering film about, taking your home back and not having to, be forced to, doing things for the bad guy, because ultimately it still has a lot going for it that most people often overlook. It's a film that doesn't nearly get talked about anymore, but throughout the years, it's gotten a lot more of a following. And unlike most Pixar movies or Disney movies nowadays, this is a film that most people actually do want a sequel to, but but I don't think it's going to happen. But I could be wrong. Coco's getting a sequel, so I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see on that. But A Bug's Life, it's still very much worth watching. At number 17 is quite possibly Pixar's most controversial film, not because it was bad, but because of the message going for it. I'm of course talking about Turning Red. People either love or hate this movie. One of the biggest criticisms towards this movie is, oh, what is this? This is too inappropriate for my kids. I don't want my kids watching this. There's so much, adult jokes and adult humor. Oh, this is blah, blah. And this is during a time where this somehow has a cult following. I don't expect the new Cat in the Hat movie to be good, but I expect it to be better than that junk. Like, I don't know. But look, the criticisms toward this movie are fair. It does feel like something that, Pixar probably wouldn't have made, especially since, despite the fact that it is PG, there are elements that could have made it PG-13, but I truly like the fact that this is actually a Pixar film to be PG rated that actually pushes the limits a little bit, actually making it earn its rating. Because look, regardless what you think, I still think it has a very good message behind it. And it still has a lot of heart. There's still some elements of family and friendship and making your own choices in life on what exactly you want to do. And honestly, there is a lot of originality in this film that really makes it worth a viewing. Yeah, the designs when it came to their faces was definitely a little bit more of a for some people, but it never really bothered me all that much. Ultimately, for me, I still think it's very much worth watching. And it's weird because when I went to go pick up this 4K, my mom was all like, "You really liked that movie?" I mean, I wouldn't have it on 4K if I did. And yeah, I did see it when it was re-released. All three of the Pixar movies when they were re-released. But yeah, regardless how you feel about Turning Red, I still really enjoyed this one. Coming in at number 16 is so far Pixar's highest grossing film of all time, and this is during a year when they were releasing bomb after bomb after bomb for some reason. But hey, Inside Out 2 was a big step up. Sure, it may be a sequel, but that doesn't make it a bad film. Honestly, I thought this was going to be a very pointless sequel that just completely misunderstood what made the first movie good. I mean, I wanted it to be good. I was hoping it would be good, and well, it was good. Some people even think it's even better than the first one, but it could have just done a rinse and repeat of what they did with the previous film, especially since Pete Docter is behind this one, but that didn't ruin anything. It still has a very strong message about, letting your anxiety get to you and why you shouldn't always rely on that. And while sure, it's still about, exploring the mind and having the emotions get back to headquarters so they can fix up Riley, but there's still a lot to this movie, especially when it comes to, growing up. There's a lot more stress going on in life. There's a lot of relatability behind it. So ultimately, it's still a sequel that shows that Pixar could do a lot more than just Toy Story sequels, but sequels to other movies that absolutely managed to pay off. Unless it's... No, I'm not going to bring that up again. But yeah, Inside Out 2, I'm just glad it was a really good film, and I definitely do think it's worth revisiting if you were a fan of the first one. And you will be seeing that pretty soon. It may be a while. That's usually a good sign, if you know what I mean. Okay, I'm going to bring up Cars 2 at least one more time, or maybe a few more times, but I'm going to tell you, this is how you do a sequel about, one of the secondary characters. I'm, of course, talking about Finding Dory. I mean, Dory was by far the show stealer when it comes to Finding Nemo. Say what you want about Ellen DeGeneres, while sure, she's not the person that we once knew, there's still no denying that she definitely killed it as Dory. And Dory is just as lovable in this as she was in the first movie. And ultimately, there is just a lot to this movie that brings in the charm of why exactly Dory doesn't always remember things, but it often makes her a very unique character and more of a unique character about, trying to find your way home. And while, yeah, it's pretty much just like the first film, except with Dory trying to find her home, there's still a lot to really enjoy about this movie. I mean, when it comes to Dory's interactions with a lot of these new characters, from the whales to Hank, the octopus thing, I still feel like, there was a lot to enjoy about this movie that definitely makes it one of the better Pixar films that they made, or one of the better Pixar sequels to come out in recent memory. I mean, hell, it came out 10 years ago, and it's... yeah, it's still a lot of fun. I still do not understand why this has a PG rating. And, yeah, it's funny, because Toy Story 5 has one. I really do not understand how exactly they can beat that incinerator scene, but guess we'll have to wait and see. But, yeah, Finding Dory, regardless, I still think it's an absolutely fantastic sequel. Another sequel of theirs that I think was absolutely worth the wait is, of course, Incredibles 2. Now, I actually see a lot of people hate on this movie, and I don't really understand why. Because while, yes, it's not quite as good as the original, I still think there was a lot to this movie that definitely made it worth the wait. I mean, this says worth the wait, and is this the... Worth the wait is both on the front and the back. I don't know, that's kind of weird. But I do think that it was worth the wait. Granted, I haven't watched it since it first came out in the theater, but I still remember enjoying a lot about it. I mean, when it comes to the family dynamic, it still manages to be there. And ultimately, there are some things that I feel like it does manage to do somewhat better than the original, even though the original is far superior. But Brad Bird, I still think, did an excellent job with the sequel. It's still a lot of fun, and I feel like a lot more is added to the characters. We get more of, Violet, Dash, and we get a lot more of Jack Jack. We learn more about, the powers that he manages to get. And, yeah, it is often confusing how he has more powers when each of the other characters only have one power, but ultimately, it's still a very fun film, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do when this becomes a trilogy. Just like Incredibles 2, I see so many people rip this movie apart, mainly because, people say, oh, it's unnecessary, it just destroyed the franchise, Granted, it was loved when it first came out, but... yeah, I don't care what anyone says. I still love this movie, despite how unnecessary it is. Toy Story 4. Is it the weakest entry? Yes. Does it focus too much on Woody's story and not much of the secondary characters? Yeah, that's also true. But I still feel like there was a lot to this movie that they managed to do right, especially when it comes to Woody. Now, yes, it is kind of divisive, especially when it comes to the end, kind of defeating the purpose of the third movie, which I do understand that. But I feel like the point of this movie was to show how toys often do get forgotten, and that's why Woody made his choice on wanting to start a new journey, starting fresh. Well, yes, it does kind of defeat the purpose of the ending of the third one because, Andy gave Bonnie, but ultimately it was Woody's choice of Andy giving him to Bonnie, and it was Woody's choice of staying with Bo Peep. I know that's not really the best excuse, but I still think there was a lot about this movie, and I'm never going to agree with the hate on it. I still think it's a fantastic film. It's the weakest one, but hey. There have been a lot of buzz saying that Toy Story, no pun intended, there's been a lot of buzz saying that 5 is even better, so who knows? Maybe there will be some things to improve upon this one. But regardless, I still love this movie. Don't care what anyone says. It's my list, and that's why it ranks at number 13. I was so upset when this movie had to go straight to Disney Plus because when this finally did get released in theaters 4 years later, I had a much more better experience. Soul. If this really is Pete Docter's last movie, and funny thing, this is the first time I'm talking about a Pete Docter movie on here. It is, right? Yeah, it is, but yeah, he really managed to give it his all here. It's a very powerful film on, the meanings that go on in our lives or finding our purpose in life, on what exactly, life's biggest questions, what the answers to those questions are, while ultimately trying to find your purpose on what exactly the soul of your dream is. And what really makes it absolutely phenomenal is the fact that it's very unpredictable. Like, the trailer really never gave away way too much. Like, it goes into an entirely different direction that made it all the more interesting. It's a very unique film. The music is dazzling. The animation... do I even need to say anything? And, Pixar just... easily the best Pixar film to come out during this current decade. And, ultimately, it's truly a work of art. And if this truly is Pete Docter's last film, then he really managed to knock it out of the park. And it is my least favorite film of his, but that's not saying anything. Hence why it's number 12 on this list. Coming in at number 11 is something that Brad Bird managed to cook up and just managed to deliver on all possible fronts. Absolutely delicious film, Ratatouille, of course. Now, last year, I actually did cook the Ratatouille. Chances are you did not hear about Ratatouille until Ratatouille came out because, who knew that a dish that was entirely made of vegetables could taste absolutely so good? But Ego definitely was onto something when biting into that for the very first time, and it is one of the most memorable moments in Pixar history. And it's a very creative and inventive film showing that anyone, including a rat, can cook. This film has been parodied so many times and has become an instant icon in Pixar's library of film that it's a very unique film that just manages to get so much deeper and so much more fun as each time I rewatch it. Hell, every time I watch this movie, I instantly want to make a bowl of soup. Or I want to make like a whole pot of soup because... this was the film that pretty much inspired me to want to cook more. It really managed to do so much justice to Pixar's library of film. Ultimately, it's an absolute delight from beginning to end. And it amazes me that, every single Pixar movie nowadays has to be PG when this is G. And there is actually a law in this movie that would probably give it a PG rating. I mean... The word hell is used, and there are guns firing, there's dead rat corpses in one scene, so... I'm still very curious to know why Toy Story 5 is PG, but regardless, the rating doesn't matter. This is still an absolutely wonderful film that you need to watch at least once in your life. If not, just a little bit more. Oh yeah, and let's not forget the drunk linguini scene and the innuendo. Yeah, I'm still curious. Just like with A Bug's Life, this film has a very interesting history behind it, and this is Pixar's third film, Toy Story 2. It's hard to believe that we almost never got this film. Not because, they didn't want to make it, but the fact is they did make it, but a lot of the files were deleted and they could not find it anywhere. But it just so happens that one of the people that was working there just so happened to have copies of many of the files that were used to make Toy Story 2, and because of that, we have this movie. So, yeah, it's scary because we wouldn't have gotten all these other fantastic films. We wouldn't have gotten Toy Story 3, or they could have, had to redo it from scratch, and it could have just turned out absolutely terrible because they completely forgot what they were doing. So, it's a miracle, and rightfully so. This could have been a generic cash grab, and hell, it could have gone straight to video like every other Disney sequel was doing, but Pixar was all like, hell no. We have to put this on the big screen, and rightfully so. It did just as well as the first film, and it's one of those sequels that doesn't do what the first film did, but exploring more on new characters while also adding in a lot more emotion and depth. That really makes it a home run and shows, Pixar is going to do a lot more to make us tear up and feel something a lot more later down the line with many other films. Toy Story 2, it's definitely a roller coaster ride of fun, emotion, heart, and ultimately, it's a sequel that manages to live up to its predecessor. So, funny thing, in 2015, we got a great Pixar movie coming out earlier in the year, and then we got a fine Pixar film much later on. Well, in 2017, we got an Pixar film in the beginning, but much later on, we got an absolutely phenomenal film much later on that would go on its way to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, which was an obvious choice. Coco. Coco is a very imaginative and very deep film about loss and how much your family loves you regardless of, what happens in your life. But what really makes this film work is the fact that, music is what tore this family apart, but oftentimes it can bring them together at just the right moment, because it makes sense why Miguel's family just doesn't like music, because it's what tore them apart, while, music brought the one guy fame, but ultimately, by the end, it's what helps, bring the family back together, and that is a very good moral. And sure, this movie took inspiration from another film, The Book of Life, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a ripoff, but more of its, like I said, more of an inspiration. And it manages to do it in a very unique and stylish way that still makes it feel fresh. I mean, director Lee Ulrich, after directing another fantastic Pixar film that we're seeing much later on, this managed to pull at the heartstrings in every single category in this movie. It's gorgeous, the music's phenomenal, it's completely unpredictable, it has so many twists and turns. Almost everything about this movie manages to work. It's an absolutely stellar film that you have to watch. If you're in a good mood, you have to watch this film to get you in a better mood, because it's gonna win you over instantly like that. Okay, at my number 8 spot is a film that needs absolutely no introduction. Hell, I could just move on to the next film, but I'm talking about it anyway. Monsters, Inc. Yeah, this is a film that many people, including myself, are very nostalgic for. I mean, what can I say? One thing that people often forget is that this is actually the first Pixar movie to not be directed by the same director. John Lasseter directed all 3 of the Pixar films that came out in the 90s, but ever since the early 2000s, Pixar has been giving more directors a spotlight. This was Pete Docter's very first film, and wow. It goes to show that many people can work at Pixar and make absolutely phenomenal films as well. And fun fact, this is also the only Pixar film directed by Pete Docter to not win Best Animated Feature, but everything else did. That goes to show how much of a top-tier director Pete Docter is. In fact, he's my favorite director when it comes to, people working with Pixar. And spoiler alert, he takes the number 1 spot. But Monsters, Inc. is a very unique film about monsters scaring kids, but not because they want to, but because they have to. That way they can keep their energy, when ultimately there is a much more bigger power much later on that shows that, humor can be just as powerful than fear, if not more powerful. Yeah, I know I'm spoiling most of these movies, but they came out years ago, but yeah. And what really makes this film work the most is the characters. Mike and Sully are an unstoppable duo that will do anything to not only keep their jobs and to save their factory, but of course, to do anything to get this little girl, who they were afraid of at first, but grow a strong bond with. I mean, the characters are so delightful and lovable, and it's just going to pull you at the heartstrings much later on. It goes to show that, yeah, movies like this can be funny, but they can also be very deep as well. That ultimately, pretty much everything about this movie works, and it's become an instant icon, and throughout the years has gotten more of a following, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger, and there are many reasons why you cannot leave this movie off a Best Pixar Movies list. It's an absolute masterpiece. Coming in at number 7 is a film that also needs absolutely no introduction, but manages to be one of the most important films Pixar has ever made, WALL-E. Yes, WALL-E. This is an absolute masterclass. I mean, I know I say that for a lot of these films, but I'm serious when I say this is a very unique film and a very important one, as it focuses a lot on, how Earth is just completely polluted. There's no plants until, of course, WALL-E finds a plant, bringing everyone back. And it's not just about that, but it's also about the deep relationship he has with his love interest, Eve, another robot that just so happens to be looking for this plant. And because of them, they manage to save the world. Again, another spoiler, but you should have seen this movie. It's an absolute masterpiece. It's such a beautifully moving film. I mean, during the first 30 minutes or so, the movie tells you absolutely nothing. You just gotta focus on what WALL-E's doing. And of course, it gets even better when Eve comes in, and it just manages to get even more powerful later down the line, and it gets more interesting, and it has a very, very strong message that I think is very relevant to this day. And that's the fact that, we shouldn't always rely on technology doing everything for us. I mean, of course, people complain that, this movie, it's fat shaming. They're fat shaming people. They're making fun of people for being too lazy. When that's not really the point. The point of this movie was really to show why, of course, we can't always rely on technology to do everything for us. We always have to do the hard things, but that's what keeps us going in life. Not only as a person, as our own person, but as a person to everybody else, so we can grow our society, so we can raise a family on our own without having technology to do everything for us. And that's why Andrew Stanton, the director of this movie, is directing Toy Story 5. I don't expect it to be exactly like this movie, which I hope it's not. I hope it still manages to do its own thing, but it just manages to show how creative Andrew Stanton's mind is. And this is an absolutely beautiful film that you need to check out once in your life. Or hell, you need to watch any Pixar movie at least once in your life. And of course, we finally get to the very first one, the very first computer animated film, and, well, it's of course the first Toy Story. You're probably surprised to see this at the number 6 spot. While I think it's an absolutely phenomenal movie, well, okay, that's all I really need to say, because regardless, it's still an awesome movie. Name one person you know of that hasn't seen Toy Story. I mean, there's a reason this film became iconic. I mean, this movie shouldn't have worked, but it managed to do everything right, from the writing to the characters to the message to everything. It manages to succeed, and it manages to make everything out of its 1 hour and 20-minute runtime, and it's still the only Pixar movie to be under an hour and a half long. And hell, Pixar movies don't really need to be super long, but hey, I don't mind it most of the time. This movie managed to do so much, and hell, it even received an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Screenplay. That goes to show how powerful this movie managed to do. It managed to get so much right, it made a huge impact at the box office, and made a huge impact on animation as a whole. And ultimately, it's the film that just started a brand new trend of animation, and ultimately checks off everything that makes it an absolute classic from beginning to end. No questions asked. It's a film that you literally, I know I've said that with every other films, but you literally need to see this movie at least once in your life. Period. Just no questions asked. It's an iconic film, hence why it's number 6. But there were just 5 other films that I feel like managed to do just a little teeny bit better for me. And coming in at number 5 is Pixar's very first PG-rated film. Not really that important, but The Incredibles, of course. The Incredibles, yeah, when Brad Bird came into the mix as a new animation director when directing films like The Iron Giant, sure, that film might not have done well financially, but critically, it was glazed all over. And personally, it's my favorite film of his, but I absolutely love The Incredibles, and there are many reasons why this became an instant icon. And at the time, was the closest thing we got to a good Fantastic Four movie until we finally got a good Fantastic Four movie last year. The Incredibles managed to do so much at, bringing in a new form of superheroes to life without having to, copy from other comics, but doing its own spin on the superhero genre, focusing on a family of superheroes that, can't be supers because supers are illegal until, supers, need to come back. It's ultimately a great film that manages to have both the heart, the humor, well, more than just two things. The heart, the humor, the adventure, the fun, the soundtrack, absolutely phenomenal. The villain, still the best Pixar villain in my opinion, and ultimately, everything about this movie manages to work. It's fast-paced, the characters are memorable, iconic lines. Where's my super suit? No capes! Yeah, Incredibles is still incredible to this very day. And we move on to number 4 with the very first Pixar movie I ever saw in the theater, Finding Nemo. And 9 years later, when it was released for Pixar movies being re-released in 3D, Finding Nemo is certainly a joy that takes you under the sea and above the ocean to focus on, a father and his son try to reunite after getting into a very nasty argument. But ultimately, what kept the film going is how determined, Marlin is to finding his son after the fact that, he and his son got upset at each other. He still goes to show that he still loves his son regardless, especially since he's the only one raising his kid after losing all of his other kids before they were born. He was lucky to have Nemo, and because he lost practically everything else, Nemo was the only thing that he had left. So that's why it's great to know that he managed to, make a lot more friends later on to help him. Well, specifically one, Dory, the show stealer, of course. But it's nice to know that Nemo was never alone as well. Both sides of the movie are absolutely fantastic, whether it be Nemo, Marlin, both, everything about this movie managed to work. And it's an unforgettable ride that manages to hit right at the heart when it needs to hit there, and it manages to be funny at the same time as well. Finding Nemo is certainly a fantastic journey under the sea and over it, if that makes any sense, but I think you know what I mean. Coming in at number 3 is a film that I simply needed to see in 2015 because I was having a very hard time in 2015, but I'm not going to get into that. I am going to get into the best Pixar film that came out that year, Inside Out. Yes, Inside Out still manages to be this high on my list because this is one of the most inventive Pixar films to ever be made. Well, yeah, people like to complain, it copied from Osmosis Jones and all that. I didn't even hear about that film until this movie came out. But look, even though Pixar films did take inspiration from other films, that doesn't mean that they can't do it better. And this film, I think, ultimately does it way better. Osmosis Jones, I just couldn't get into. I'm sorry. I know that hasn't fallen, but blah, blah, blah. Inside Out is an excellent story about exploring the human mind, but it's also about, not specifically controlling your emotions, but Inside Out has a great message behind it on how sadness is just as important as happiness, as it's a film that focuses a lot on our emotions and what we're going through and why exactly we have these emotions and why we feel what we feel, and we feel like we need to express ourselves. As, it explores the human mind in a very unique way that ultimately makes it feel so much more relatable. Like when it comes to forgetting things or getting stuff stuck in our head, it ultimately makes for a very creative and inventive film that's very colorful, filled with memorable characters, memorable moments, a fun adventure, and I never get tired of watching this film. I love it even more every time I revisit it. It's simply a work of art from beginning to end, and I simply just haven't gotten tired of this film, hence why it's this high on my list. Alright, we are getting to the top 2, and we haven't even talked about all the Toy Story movies yet until now. My very favorite of the Toy Story movies, Toy Story 3. Yes, this was the better way to end the franchise, but hey, I still love 4, but 3 was definitely the better out of, well, you know what I mean. Toy Story 3 was one of the most unique experiences I've ever had in the theater as a kid. I mean, I missed out on so many Pixar films, aside from a few that I got to see, Ratatouille, Cars, Finding Nemo, all those films, but Toy Story 3 was the best experience I had at a Pixar film. I saw it in IMAX 3D, and Yeah, it just gave me so much that I wasn't expecting. I was not expecting to feel so much emotion. I mean, as a kid, yeah, I loved it, but I love it even more as an adult, as it has a sense of relatability when it comes to passing on your childhoods to someone else, while also having to grow up in life and have to continue on with a new journey. It's really what makes this film absolutely special. There are so many memorable moments, so much unpredictability, and ultimately it makes for a film that manages to have so much power behind it that anything could have happened in this film. Like, the toys could have died in that incinerator. Then again, it probably wouldn't receive a G rating, but whatever. It's obvious that it wouldn't end that way, but hey, I still feel like there was a very big reason why that was there. They were afraid of getting thrown away, and they were afraid of getting left behind. They were afraid of so much, so you feel sorry for everybody in this movie. It makes it so special because we've grown to love these characters, and we feel sorry for what they're going through despite the fact that they're toys. It has by far my favorite villain out of the Toy Story movies, and ultimately makes for a very delightful, emotional, funny roller coaster ride that never manages to lose its steam whatsoever, but manages to gain even more of it. Toy Story 3 is an absolute masterclass and is still my favorite Toy Story movie to this very day, my second favorite Pixar film, and one of my favorite animated films ever. And here it is, my number one pick, the only Pixar movie I haven't talked about, but I feel like it's a very easy choice for me. This has been my number one for a very long time, and it's stuck with me for so many years. And not only is this my favorite Pixar movie, but my favorite animated film of all time, and one of my favorite movies in general. I think you know what it is. It's Up. Up is simply one of those movies that sticks with you forever. I mean, it has, I think many people can agree, one of the best opening sequences that manages to tell you everything about why exactly, Carl is going on this adventure, because they never really showed that in the trailer. It did an excellent job of not giving away too much. And one of my biggest mistakes in life was not getting to see this in the theater, and I was originally going to, but I never got that chance. If this movie gets re-released for its 20th anniversary in 2029, I'm going to be the first one to get in that theater and see this on the biggest screen possible. It is such an imaginative film. It has a very original storyline, a very original use of travel, memorable characters, and it's specifically a film about, how you went on a previous adventure in life, but getting the chance to make a brand new one without feeling like, you have to leave everything behind, but, keep that memory of your previous adventures in check while also gaining new ones. And it's a film that manages to have so much going for it from its opening sequence, because I did not know what I was even expecting when it came to the opening sequence. Like, who is this kid? Who is this girl? I didn't see her in the trailer, but wow. It all makes sense now, and I feel like it is a beautiful way of telling your story without feeling like you need to tell the audience what's going on. Rarely does, Carl doesn't even bring up the fact that Ellie is dead. Never. Not once. And that's okay, because we don't really need to hear it. You feel so sorry for the man, and you feel so sorry for what he has to go through, but ultimately you root for him as he goes on this journey. He learns a lot throughout his life, while also, making new friends, and the chemistry he has with Russell, it's a very strong bond that he manages to have, while also listening to what Russell has been going through in his life while becoming a scout. And it's really what kept the film going. This is a film that I absolutely cherish. And there just hasn't been another Pixar film to really top this one for me. It's a film that took me into the sky as high as I possibly could, watching it for the first time, and it still takes me there every single time. It just gets better every time I rewatch it, and chances are it'll continue to get better. I absolutely love this film. It's easily my favorite Pixar film of all time, and I don't think that's ever going to change, but hey, I don't really, it doesn't matter. Up. Yeah, it's my number one. I've been recording for an hour, and that was my ranking of all the Pixar films currently. So, obviously I'm going to ask you what your ranking is for all the Pixar films, but I also want to ask you, Where exactly do you think Toy Story 5 will rank in your top 10 or top 30 or whatever? Do you think it will be better than 4? Do you think it will somehow be better than the first 3? Do you think, like, I don't know, what are your thoughts are? I think it's really going to live up to expectation because I really like the idea it's going for. I mean, the fact that technology is taking over and, kids are probably going to abandon their toys for tablets and stuff. It has me very curious. So I really hope it manages to live up to expectation. There's been a lot of early buzz about it. So yeah, again, no pun intended. But I am going to tell you this. I'm not going to have my review for Toy Story 5 until the week after it comes out. Now, I am going to be seeing it Thursday night as it comes out, but I'm going to be waiting to review the film because I'm going to be doing another collab review with my friend Keen. If you saw in my Mario Galaxy review, where, I did a collab with him. So I decided to do another collab with him with Toy Story 5. He is going to be busy for a few days, so he is going to see the movie as well. But I just wanted to do another compilation review with him. So yeah, just be patient for that, but I'm definitely going to have that review out. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, in the meantime, I still have many other reviews I have to do. I'm still curious about seeing that movie, The Furious, because I heard it's really, really good. I also just finished the new the new 007 game, First Light. I'm going to have a review for that. So yeah, I got a lot of stuff to do, got a lot of videos to work on, so please be patient. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Oh man, I got a lot of editing to do, but yeah, all I gotta do is just get the posters, and yeah, simple as that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and maybe subscribe for more. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or maybe Blue Sky. Links are in the description, and I'll see you guys later. Word out.